I think the history of the college is fabulous in our 20th year to reflect on. The sacrifice, the vision, the faithfulness of our founding board members and directors is just incredible. And today we are what we are because of their faithfulness and their sacrifice in that, both financially and with the time that they invested then. And the challenge for us now, 20 years down the track, is to remain mission true. They launched with a very specific mission, a very specific intention to provide a Christ-centred education in Bundaberg. And 20 years down the track, and as a principal of the college, that's the challenge that I take up and endeavour to continue to remain mission true.
Well, the college came about, I think, back as early as 1987. Mal Foreman and ourselves were involved in a Christian fellowship, and Mal applied back then for an application to establish a Christian school in Bundaberg. So nothing ever further happened from that process. And then I believe in around about 92, the Baptist Church, Brian Robinson, contacted Mal to ask if he could use that application to apply to put a Christian school in Bundaberg. The Baptist Church looked at the application and went through the process and then decided that they weren't going to proceed with it.
Back in 1987, it became very evident that there's a need in Bundaberg to have a Christian school to accommodate the many Christian families to have their students in an environment like that. Just shortly after we had that discussion, we met with Mr. Graham Kerr, who came to Bundaberg, and there's a few of us from the Bundaberg Christian Fellowship at the time who met with him, and he expounded the merits of a Christian school and how it can be started. We went through the process. We believed it was God's will that there should be a Christian college in Bundaberg region, and we started from there. After that, we set up the process and we applied for government recognition and funding, which we were granted. That was for 2 years. At the end of that 2 years, we were to get $200,000 to start the school. However, when we went out and tried to put the proposal to different churches at the time, it was not very well accepted to have a Christian school in Bundaberg, unfortunately. I asked for an extra extension from the government to do that, to keep the school life going, or to keep the seed of a Christian college alive in the region. After that, we ran out the next 12-month extension of time, and I was approached by the ACE, it's Accelerated Christian Education Group. Could they take over that, because they were trying to start a school themselves here. I changed all the paperwork over to them and transferred all of our stuff to them. And then 2 days later, Mr. Brian Robinson, the pastor from the Baptist Church, came and approached me and said, could we take over where we were doing what we were doing? And I said, sorry, you're 2 days late. And but I did help them formulate the paperwork and get the paperwork ready again. Then they applied in their own right under the Baptist Church banner, and they were granted that from there. Then they went for about 2 years from there to try and get the school established.
It was in 1992 that we came to Bundaberg to live. I was appointed as an associate pastor at one of the churches in the community. And we'd come from a 6-year stint of church planting in far north Queensland. And when we were in that situation, we were exposed to the concept of Christian schooling, and that was a very new thing for both of us. Yeah. We'd both been educated in the state school system. Caroline's father was a state school teacher, and her grandparents, and so
myself
and Caroline herself, and so we'd been very used to state education, and we thought that Christians ought to be involved in state schooling. But when we're in that church situation in far north Queensland, we came to realise that there is a vast benefit in Christian schooling to support the values and the beliefs of Christian families in the raising of their children. And so when we came to Bundaberg in 1992, we looked around, and there weren't in Bundaberg, apart from the Roman Catholic primary schools and St John's Lutheran primary school, there wasn't a Christian community school. And I really felt a sense from God that there needed to be such an institution in the Bundaberg area. And so I asked the church leaders at the church where I was associate pastor, would they allow me time to go and investigate? And so we started the process second half of 1992. And the end of 1993, we received notification from the federal government that provisional approval had been granted to start a school in 1995 or 1996. At that time, we were envisaging that it would be a ministry of one of the local churches, the church that I was associate pastor at. And so the paperwork was done in the name of that church. In mid-1994, the church leaders decided not to proceed, but said if we could get a group of people together, they would allow me the time, paid time, to be involved in getting a school off the ground, even though it wasn't sponsored by that particular local church. So that's what we did. In July 1994, I called together some people that I knew were interested in Christian schooling, and we began meeting in the lounge room of our house every Sunday afternoon to move towards the establishment of Bundaberg Christian College.
We received a phone call from either Brian or Mal that there was a group of Christians meeting together at Brian and Caroline Robinson's place on a Sunday afternoon with the desire to establish a Christian school in Bundaberg.
The meetings that we used to have, even before the school commenced, they were every Sunday afternoon, and they would commence after everybody finished church, and they would go through till about 6 o'clock at night. So there was a lot of prayer, a lot of forward looking into
Just planning
and I actually used to look after all the children of the people that were on the committee or the founding members.
There was a much larger group interested in the idea, but gradually came down to a much smaller group who were prepared to stay with it and pursue the idea more.
So the founding members, we believe, were Brian and Caroline Robinson, Mel and Joy Fullman, Tom and Janet Stevens, Brian and Deborah Stevens, Andrew Fulton, Barbara and Ian Page, ourselves, and Karen Barlow.
They were the members on the first steering committee, and we started from there. We started to establish what needs we needed to, what we need to put in place. We knew we had to become a company limited by guarantee. We had to start the process of registration, etc. But in the meantime, we also had to combine what was the focus, what was the Artists of Association for the college, what was our objectives, and we had to pull that together. The logo designs and everything was done at that time. It was an enjoyable time to do it, but the real irony of all this, we had no funds, we had no money, so we used to, the ladies used to make strawberry jam and other things and sell things, and we put into a little tin. That was our first banking of the school and money collection of the school for the school. That's
car washes,
car washes,
bush dances.
And the girls got free sugar from CSR,
Yes.
sugar company, and they got some strawberries. It was too old to sell, so
Yes.
most of the strawberry jam was bought by the company members or the starters, but anyway.
Well, some of the functions that we held to raise money right at the beginning were fundraisers through McDonald's. If so many burgers or meal deals were bought, a certain amount of the money was contributed to the Bundaberg Christian College. We also had a street stall at, used to be called Olson's, but it's now Foodworks, and we used to sit out the front of the TAB section where the people would come and go quite regularly, and we would have a table full of cooking, a table full of plants, craft items, and we would sell jams and biscuits, whatever people donated. and we would sell those to raise money also for the school. We had fundraiser bush dances.
Dances out at Tom and Janet's. Yeah.
Tom and Janet's property out Morelands Road, where the committee or the board member women would cook and make salads and sweets, and the men would do the barbecue American style, and then we would have bush dancing, and all the money raised for that by selling tickets to come. That was not just for the school community, that was for the wider community. We would advertise it, and that would raise money also.
And initially at the start we approached some lending authorities to help finance the school, and we were knocked back by a couple that weren't comfortable with doing it, but the National Bank, to their credit, opted to help finance us to build Stage 1, along with the agreement that there would be guarantors, so the board members took on the responsibility to be guarantors for establishing the initial stages, and we stayed on as guarantors for it was probably nearly 12 years that we had to remain on guarantors, until the college, I guess, got to a point where they were comfortable to see that it was established to this day that we are no longer required to be guarantors. But we're so grateful to the National Bank and to the bank people at that time that they could catch hold of the vision like we had and ran with it. So yeah, praise God for that.
It was a very exciting time to be able to meet week by week. You know, we all have had our individual church responsibilities and belonging to different churches, but to gather every Sunday afternoon and to talk about and dream about and vision about the establishment of a Christian school.
Well, we were very excited to get a Christian school going in Bundaberg to help the parents to be able to have backup with the Christian input that they were putting into their children, that it would be backed up 24/7 going to school as well. And also the wider community, having the evangelical churches come together in one common ground of teaching the children God's biblical teaching.
Yeah, the reason for establishing a Christian school in Bundaberg was there was no non-denominational Christian education facility in the community, and that was a big driver behind getting the Christian school going.
The college started originally because I think that a lot of parents were looking for something other than what was available in mainstream education. I had done homeschooling with my children for 3 years, and I think that they needed to be with other children with a more timetable type, schedule going on. So a group of parents got together, talked about their desires to have an education with a Christian base, and some people did a lot of work to get it all organised.
As soon as we heard that there was a Christian school happening or wanting to happen, we were really excited. We wanted to get on board because our children were at an age where they were ready to be educated, and we were looking for a facility that would provide this education for our children, and so we were really excited from that point of view that our children would have the opportunity to go to a school that would teach them an education, a quality education, along with a Christian backup, a Christian background, and growing into really good moral people, and eventually, hopefully, if they didn't have already, a personal relationship.
And we wanted to have a college that was pretty standard as far as the whole education system in Queensland was. We wanted to have a school that we could teach kids that if they wanted to go to university, they would get a quality education and go to university. If they couldn't do that or didn't want to, we could teach them how to plant corn and cattle, take care of cattle. And agriculture was one of our main thoughts because we're in an agricultural area. And we wanted to be sure and include agriculture in this, and we did get that going when they're still at high school. And it's been very successful, even though we had a blip or two. But anyway, that's, we wanted to educate them and be qualified to do whatever they wanted to do.
Well, we went and visited a lot of the churches. We spread the message about the Bundaberg Christian College, the desire to have a college in our community. Pastor Robertson and I went around and did most of that. And we spoke to people, we met with people, we encouraged them. We tried to plant the seed of hey, Christian education is something they should consider. And I believe that was very fruitful. I know everything we've done, the whole board, the whole beginning steering committee, it was done from a pure heart, wanting to put God's college here in our region, and I think that's why it's blossomed.
We first found out about the college when our firstborn was only a young fellow, and Mel Foreman found us or sought us out at church and asked if we'd be interested in sending our children to a Christian school if it were to eventuate. And at the time, we both said, yeah, definitely. We'd send our children there. And it wasn't until our eldest actually got to the school age that we actually had to make that decision about where to send the children. And for us, finances came into play. We had to question if we could afford to do this. But we really valued the Christian education. We valued the values, the way they taught. And so we prayed about it and said, God, if we're meant to send our kids here, we need to be able to afford to do this. And every year since, we've been able to pay the fees. So our children have gone right through from grade 1 right through to completion.
So I was brought on as a foundation member, and I was probably used with my building knowledge and my building background to help establish the campus, along with consultation with the architects. So that was originally my role, but it was simply a real desire for our children to have Christian education.
I also did RE in the state system, and I saw what the state schools were offering the students, and so I really was concerned about my children going to school, what school they were going to. Was I going to homeschool them? And once we heard that there was a Christian school in the pipeline, I was excited because I thought that's where my children are going to go to school.
With the vision to grow, well, of course, we needed land to build a permanent campus, and we needed 10 acres as a minimum, and of course, to buy something with water and sewage was going to cost, well, even in 1995, we were looking at close to $500,000, which was money we didn't have. And it was then that, I had a talk to my sister, and we decided we'd make 10 acres available here if that was what the company decided would be suitable. That's how it all ended up here. And now in hindsight, it's really halfway between the city and the coast. It's right along the growth corridor, and it's worked out to be, an ideal position.
Well, my involvement initially was we started to look at places to put the college, and there was quite a few different areas thrown up, and I can particularly remember one block of land that we looked at on Bonner Road. It was a pineapple farm, and I remember there was like a dozen of us walking through this paddock and stepping over pineapples and trying to visualise as this being a place for our college. And then we also looked at the block of land opposite the Shalom College, where the cemetery is there. There was a block of land on the corner near the Bundaberg abattoirs at the time. We looked at that land also, but it wasn't suitable because of the abattoirs. There was conditions that were probably going to be upon us. And then eventually Mel and Joy's land, or Joy's land, came up out on Asheville Road, and that was a godsend. It was wonderful, and God just had it all in control. He you always used to remember that obstacles used to come up, and you think, what are we going to do here? How are we going to work through this? And just in God's time, he'd come along and he'd bring the right people along, and he'd just deal with the situation. And really, we were along there for the ride. It was terrific. It was great.
When we were looking for a site, as Joy said, there was a number of sites that we looked at and visited around the town. We met with the council to see what would be suitable land, and all the land was very expensive. Where the land was reasonable, they had no drainage or water supplied, so it's going to cost money. And so when we decided on Ashfield Road here, we put an application into the council. We got a few consultants in to help us put it together, and we got that done and put it to the council, and they weren't too keen on us putting a school out here. And then they had some ideas about the sewerage system, because we were going to put our own sewage treatment plant, water treatment plants, etc. And at the time, the council rejected all that, and we decided we had some discussion about it amongst the company guys and the team, and we said, look, and I said very strongly, I said, I believe God wants us to do this. I think we need to take on the council, and we'll go and take them to the court, which we did. We went to court, and we ended up getting the approval that we build a school. We had to finalise a decision or the conditions with the council, which we did, and then we opened up here, to the disappointment of the council at the time.
At that stage, I was the manager of planning and development, and for various reasons, council didn't think that was an appropriate site for the school, basically because it was beyond the periphery of the urban area of Bundaberg at that time, and it wasn't serviced with water or sewerage, didn't have good footpath connections, etc., etc. The application went through the approval process, and the council refused the application. And somewhere at about that point, for me, it became very difficult to remain on the foundational group as well as be manager of planning and development with the council. So I resigned from the group. But I still had an input interface into the school, in that the school appealed council's decision, and there were numerous meetings between the council and the school board, chiefly Mel Foreman and Brian Robertson. That went to court in Brisbane, and I think I can remember us all being in court. Out of that, there came a consent order from the court for the school to proceed, and hence it then proceeded on the Ashfield Road site.
And actually, when we went to court firstly here in Bundaberg, and I had to go sit in the seat, and I was being questioned by the barristers, and the judge was there, and they was asking me questions, and I was telling them the facts, and the judge I could sense the judge was favouring my answers, and then our barrister got up and he really put a strong case forward. And at the time, I think the council lawyers and the team knew they were not winning, and they asked could we postpone that day, which we agreed to, because they wanted to get more prepared, because I don't think they were prepared, willing to take on the battle, I suppose. And so we had to wait about another 3 or 4 weeks. We went down to Brisbane for the second day of the court hearing to go through it. Tom Stevens and me went down, and I was questioned again on a couple of other things on water, and we had some specialists in the water and sewerage and everything else, and they got onto the stand and they explained how the sewage water treatment works and all this. It just blew them out of the water, and had to deal with acoustic sounds around the fencing and all that. So we had all the specialist guys there, and we took them to there, and then the council team come to our barrister and said, look, I think the guys are winning, can we stop? And we just said, no, I think we need to really get the whole issue out on the table. And we went for about another hour and a half, 2 hours with that. And then we agreed to go ahead, and the judge then said, look, go back, the school must go ahead to the council, you have to work out the conditions with the school committee, and that's where it all started. And we put all that together and we got what we have today, and something to be very proud of.
When the college first began, our dream was that Bundaberg Christian College would be a school that offered education with godly wisdom. And that's captured in the school motto of education with wisdom. We envisaged that it would be a school that would offer that from prep, or preschool as it was then called, all the way through to year 12, and primarily be a school that was for the children of Christian parents, or at least church-going parents. We did recognise that there would be people who weren't church-going who might also like to enrol their children in the school, but we saw primarily that it would be for the children of church-going families. And so we envisaged that the education and the practice of faith would be intertwined throughout the life of the school.
I think we also wanted to have an education that was also affordable.
Yes.
We didn't want Christian parents to miss out on the opportunity to educate their children in a Christian school because of cost.
We deliberately kept fees low, and we offered fee relief to families who were low income to enable them to have their children in a Christian schooling environment. The college added each year of secondary school from 1998 onwards. So in 1998, had in year 8, the first year of secondary school, as it was then. We added year 9 in 1999, year 10 in the year 2000, and the first cohort of year 12s was in 2002. Secondary schooling's always perhaps more complex than primary schooling. It certainly requires a lot more resources, and it was a big step for the college to be able to add each year of secondary school that quickly. So the primary school was probably still expanding during that time, moving from being composite classes into being single streamed, and then later on into being double streamed. But it was good to be able to see that there was sufficient interest and sufficient desire from parents in our community for a Christian school that was from preschool, as it was then called, now prep, all the way through to year 12.
The Christian college uniform was part of, before it started, they went through a process of looking at fabrics and styles and colours, and the colours were significant, being the beautiful pale aqua blue, being a cool looking colour, also being a colour that was the ocean colour. And originally the first colour we chose we couldn't get, but that aqua blue was the next best colour that we thought would work well. And it was a part of the process before the school actually started. So when the children started on the first day, they were beautifully dressed in their uniforms right from the start. We had a uniform shop where they could purchase them from, and even when we moved out to the new premises, there was a little uniform shop where they could purchase their uniforms from.
So with the uniforms, we were looking at buying the material, because that was 22 years ago nearly, and we got one of the local shops that no longer exists to bring in some samples. We had a look at some samples, and we actually had a choice of the blue material, which we finally chose, or a maroon one. And at that school, at that time, I think Walkabout was the only school that used maroon, and so we looked at that. But when we looked at the maroon, and we thought a whole classroom of maroon coloured uniforms might feel quite hot. So we chose the blue, and we got some patterns, and we actually traced off patterns and created the pattern, and parents would have to borrow the pattern and buy the material and make the uniforms. So we made the uniforms because in those days there weren't the uniform shops available, and also in the first couple of years we didn't have the quantity, so they wouldn't we didn't have anyone who would be prepared to sort of make a few uniforms for us. So we had to go with parents making the uniforms.
If I remember correctly, Janet Stevens produced that logo in 1995, so we actually had the logo before the school commenced, and we could use that logo on advertising material and so on. So the name of the school had three elements: Bundaberg Christian College, and so the logo that Janet Stevens came up with had those three elements within it, each element symbolising or representing one aspect of the name of the school. I think it's still a good logo, and if I remember correctly, the colour scheme the colours that Janet chose to use for the logo reflected the colours that we were choosing for the school uniform at the time. Having looked at the bluish colours and the maroon colours, and having chosen blue, then Janet chose to use a blue to colour the butterfly within the logo.
I think God has a sense of humour from the point of view that a lot of us that came together, there were some that had educational background, but a lot of us had no educational background as far as teaching and that, and it's just amazing who God is able to bring together to bring about something like this, and that's probably something that is really special. And yeah, I really think about that a lot, actually. You know, why did he choose us to be involved? And I guess the point was that we accepted to be involved. I think that's a big thing, and I'd probably encourage people everywhere to dream dreams, you know, dream dreams, and if you feel God laying something on your heart, just take that step of faith, and he will just lead you one step at a time. Like he doesn't give you something that is so overpowering that you can't bear with it, even though there's times you think, oh, we're really going to be able to manage this. But God, in his time, as you walk in his steps, he will just lead you along that path to bring it to a point. And the thing with the college is it's not over, it's ongoing. You never can say it's complete, it's finished, because there's always more stuff happening, and there's more things, and God wants to, who really knows at this point where God is going to lead us in this, and I think there's a lot of exciting times ahead for everyone that's involved in the college.
I dreamed I stood in the studio and watched three sculptors there. The clay they used was a child's mind, and they fashioned it with care. One was a teacher, the tools he used were books, music, and art. One a parent with a guiding hand and a gentle, loving heart. Together we are one, growing into Christ as Lord. Together we are one, we are one. Together we are one, growing into Christ as Lord. Bundaberg Christian College, the victory is ours. Whoa. Reached out to his Father God, and made heavenly things his goal. Day after day the sculptors toiled with a touch that was loving and sure. The three of them laid it side by side and polished and smoothed it over. Together we are one, growing into Christ as their task was done, they were proud of what they'd wrought. For the things they'd molded in their child could never be sold or bought. And each agreed he would have failed if he had worked alone. For behind the pastor